So welcome and thanks so much for joining us again. I'm so glad you're here. So today we are finishing up our series on the second half of life. And I got to tell you, I cannot think of a better time to do it than right now at this time of the year. We are in the midst of the Jewish high holidays, which began with the first day of Rosh Hashanah before sundown on September 18th and ends with Yom Kippur, which begins at sundown today and ends after nightfall tomorrow on September 28th. In the Jewish calendar, this is a time of turning and of new beginnings. So it was just a wonderful time for us to do our series, The Second Half of Life, which talks about change and growth. So I want to talk about this holiday, and specifically, I want to explore what it can teach us as we talk about awakening and growth and change and intentional turning, all themes that we have explored this month. In Hebrew, Rosh Hashanah means literally head of the year or first of the year. Rosh Hashanah is known as the Jewish New Year, even though it falls on the first day of the 7th month of the Jewish calendar. Traditionally, Rosh Hashanah begins a period known as the 10 days of awe or the days of repentance. It's a time for introspection, self-examination, a review of the year past. It's also a time for reconciliation, forgiveness, renewal, and healing. The Torah refers to this time as the Day of Remembrance, and it is the Torah in Leviticus chapter 23, verses 24 through 25, that sets it on the first day of the month of Tishri, the 7th month. In those verses, God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people thus, in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall observe complete rest, a sacred occasion commemorated with loud blasts. You shall not work at your occupations, and you shall bring an offering by fire to the Lord." So let's talk about the loud blast for a second. Many of you will have heard the sounding of the shofar or ram's horn in synagogues during Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur. Actually, those who have been with us here at One World for a few years will remember several years ago that our kids in Sunday school made shofars out of paper and sounded them. And then we had a fellowship of honey and apples, which is the traditional Rosh Hashanah foods to symbolize our hope for a sweet new year. That was way fun. So you may ask why the new year falls on the 7th month. In Jewish tradition, the new year begins at the time that God created Adam, the first human. Rosh Hashanah celebrates this new creation. According to the Talmud, God created Adam and thus mankind on the first day of the month of Tishri, which is the 7th month. Rosh Hashanah is also referred to traditionally as the Day of Judgment. On this day, in traditional belief, God opens the book of life and begins to decide who shall live and who shall die. One's actions taken in the 10 days before Yom Kippur can change this result, and therefore observers during this period focus on the 3 ways tradition teaches they can ensure their names are written in the book of life. So we're going to talk about these 3 ways. What are these 3 ways? They are repentance, prayer, and charity, or good works. Together, these practices are known as Teshuva, or turning. Just an image I love. They represent our opportunity to take a fresh look, to renew and affirm new choices that serve us better. So think about that: repentance, prayer, and good deeds. These sound familiar, even though we may language them differently. Let's start with repentance. That word has a lot of baggage. For many, it means judgment of a harsh God, begging for forgiveness, focus on sin. However, the source of the word is just to regret, to be sorry. I think of awareness, consciousness, unfolding, awakening. It means, or it can mean, that we've taken the opportunity to look back and reflect and see that we might have behaved in a different way or made a different choice. We bring ourselves back into alignment with the divine and into alignment with each other. It's a time of awareness and reconciliation and healing. It's a time of turning, which is a wonderful image. The next step is prayer. Now, we are a community that strongly affirms the power of the energy of prayer. What do? We do it here on our gathering. We align our focus, our thoughts, and our hearts to connect with Source together, to know that we are one and that we can affirm the truth of our wholeness. Prayer is a primary way that individually and collectively we rest in spirit and good works. So what does that mean but service? We are the hands and the voice and the feet. We are the action of the divine here on earth. And the goal of our awakening is to spread that love and compassion that are hallmarks of the holy here on earth. As Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore said, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. We do not follow a spiritual path so that we can focus on our own growth to the exclusion of the world. The holy path brings you deeper into the world, more deeply connected with it, more profoundly involved with others and with all of life. The more we awaken, the more we open our hearts to all, seeing the oneness of all, seeing that we all are so profoundly connected, looking at the face of another and seeing the face of God. If we believe that we are all one, that separation is an illusion, then awakening inevitably means widening our circle of love and compassion and care. Loving action follows. So you may view as metaphorical the imagery of God opening a book and examining it for names. It is a rich image, and it still has great meaning, even if you don't think that literally God opens a book. You still get to ask yourself what meaning it has for you as you reflect on your past with a view to a new start. It is an amazing gift, and this is one of the purposes of ritual, to have a time dedicated to reflection about the larger questions. We get so busy with our days. It's just wonderful to have a time where we are told, this is a time we stop and think. This is a time we reflect. Take this time because it matters. We think about the larger questions. Am I behaving with kindness? How do I treat others? What judgments or assumptions or beliefs do I hold that may injure others, that prevent me from seeing them in their true and holy light? How necessary it is to have a period of time devoted to the notion that we should look back. We are so forward thinking. We need some time devoted to the idea that we stop and we look back, reflect on our actions, and consider how we might live a life in the coming year, the coming months, that brings us closer to each other and closer to God. Whenever I say that, I think that might be sort of the same thing. Being closer to God, being closer to each other. Several of us just completed several weeks of a discussion group on justice and equity, exploring issues of individual and systemic racism in ourselves and in our society. And in that regard, I just got to say, I got to give a huge shout out and thank you to Danielle Wright, who put so much time and effort and wisdom and humor and compassion and patience in as our discussion leader. I just cannot thank her enough for the gift she has given One World. But I can't imagine a better time for that class than during this time of retrospection and reflection and commitment to new beginnings. This ritual, this holiday is new every year. This opportunity is new every year for whatever issues we carry right now that need resolution. The opportunity is always fresh, even though the ritual itself is ancient. Now, we may be tempted to focus during this period on the many ways we perceive we have fallen short, and those should certainly be examined. However, Rosh Hashanah also calls on us to examine the ways we have been a blessing, to be kind to ourselves. We can grow, we can change without heaping all that negative judgment on ourselves. By and large, we all are doing the best we can, and we are human. We make our choices with good intent, even though we sometimes fall short. Rabbi Robin Nafshi of Temple Beth Jacob in Concord, New Hampshire, gave the following analogy. She gave a 2017 Yom Kippur message, and I just love her analogy. She said that when you're driving somewhere and you've got your GPS on and you take a wrong turn, it doesn't start yelling at you, "You moron, what have you done? What were you thinking?" It doesn't do any of that. Instead, it just calmly redirects you. It says redirecting, and calmly you end up on your way and you get where you are going. No judgment, no recrimination. She says we should be able to do the same for ourselves. She said, we are in the season of Teshuva, turning or changing ourselves to become the people we want to be or know we can be. We will never be perfect. We can't be. We are human. Flaws will remain, but we still can make changes. That is the purpose of this time. She goes on, Teshuvah involves many steps. The final stage of Teshuvah is accepting who we are and realizing that our flaws make us unique. Our challenge in life is not to hide who we are, hide our inner voice, or live like other people, but to become more like ourselves. She quoted the great Hasidic master, the Baal Shem Tov, who taught, compare yourself not with anyone else, lest you spoil God's curriculum. I just love that. God's curriculum for you is you and how you live in this world, how you awaken yourself, how you share your gifts, and how you shine. Our goal is to become the light that we are, that no one else can be. What's another way of putting it? And I love this too. Be yourself because everyone else is taken. Be yourself. Learn to shine as yourself. Rosh Hashanah at its core is a celebration of our ability to renew, to begin again. However, as we grow in awareness, one of the gifts of our unfolding is that loving acceptance of who we are and where we are. Don't we say that we are exactly where we need to be on our path? We are perfect just as we are, even though we all could use some improvement. Yes, Rabbi Ronnie Handler writes that her goal for the High Holy Days is to examine where I've been and where I'm going through the lens of acceptance. Not that she is not going to continue to grow, but that she will love who she is now as she grows. We grow on a foundation of love and nurturing. That is how we flourish. I just love that. Examine where I've been and where I'm going through the lens of acceptance. What else does that do for us? It enables us to see clearly where we are and where we're going without having to look through the filter of fear and judgment and negativity. It enables us to see ourselves and our path forward that much more clearly. Rabbi Yael Levy, who wrote today's reading, writes that in this time of renewal, we can lift our eyes to the good we have done this year, the blessings we have bestowed. She writes that this examination is the essence of Teshuvah, of turning. She writes, the tradition teaches that acknowledging the good in ourselves is an act of Teshuvah, of turning. We call ourselves to return to our best selves by recognizing the ways in which we have acted for love and for blessing. So the renewal that we call for during Rosh Hashanah, thus, is not a time to judge yourself and respond harshly, not to tell yourself, I just need to be a better person. It's a time to affirm that you are a child of light, that your heart is called to bestow blessings and love and compassion in this world. Rabbi Yael calls it an invitation back into loving relationship with each other and all of life. That's another image I love, an invitation back into loving relationship with each other and all of life. There is always opportunity for change. We always have that chance to turn and to grow. The story is told of Rabbi Salanter, who one night was walking home past the home of a shoemaker. Despite it being very late, he observed the shoemaker was still busy working by the light of a single candle. He goes up to him. Why are you still working? Rabbi Salanter asked him. It's very late, and soon the candle will go out. The shoemaker replied, as long as the candle is still burning, it is still possible to accomplish and to mend shoes. In his wisdom, Rabbi Salanter realized this message is true for all of us. As long as the candle is still burning, it's never too late to change. So as I was researching this talk, I came across a Rosh Hashanah tradition that resonated with me and I would like to share it with you. It's going to sound pretty familiar, and it may be one you want to consider in the days ahead. It's the ritual of Tash Leak. The goal of the ritual is to symbolically rid yourself of your past, and the word they use is sins, so that you might move forward unburdened. Okay, so let's think about the word sin. It is a loaded word. Some regard it as an act that offends God, while others see it as those moments where we have simply stepped off our paths. Unkindness, lack of welcome, withdrawal of compassion. In New Thought, you might think of it as error thinking, succumbing to the illusion of separation to indulge our human ego. What happens to us? We become proud, self-centered, arrogant, self-righteous. We separate ourselves from the holy within and from each other. Sometimes I think that maybe all these definitions may actually be the same thing. So how does Tash Leak help? With awareness, we leave these burdens behind. So how does it work? What do we do? In the Tash Leak ceremony, traditionally, one goes to a body of running water and casts breadcrumbs or other symbols into it to be simply carried away. Some go and turn out their pockets into the running water to release what they symbolically have been carrying around. For those who have been through the burning bowl ceremony, you're going to recognize this imagery. It's a time of release, a time of letting go, a time of lightening. The ceremony has been in practice for thousands of years, recognizing the power of awareness, release, and beginning anew. So I mentioned earlier that Rosh Hashanah is celebrated at this time of the year because Jewish tradition teaches that this is when God created Adam, the first human. Now, this is also a message that is rich in symbolism that can bring inspiration and hope to us. I came across author Shimon Appisdorf, author of the book Rosh Hashanah and the Yom Kippur Survival Kit. And he draws a lesson from Rosh Hashanah. He observes that God, being God, could have created thousands of people at once, not just one guy. He could have created cities, he could have created countries, entire civilizations, but he didn't. He created an individual, one person. To this author, that choice reflected what Appisdorf calls the fantastic potential inherent in each of us. Because God made just one. One was enough. Each of us has the ability and the potential to make a difference in our world. That was the message he drew. I just love the way that we can read these ancient stories and we can still find truth in them, whether or not we believe that they literally happened as a historical fact. They still contain truth and meaning and lessons which can so enrich our lives. These high holidays teach us that renewal is an ongoing gift and it's an ongoing opportunity. Every day we have the choice to reflect and renew and begin again and connect with our essence. Every moment of our life gives us that opportunity. Every day we are constantly starting anew. So the question is, what can we do in the weeks and months ahead to continue our growth, to share our gifts? How can I contribute to making the world a better place? The message of Rosh Hashanah is that the world awakens as we do. We are agents of that awakening. So look at the three practices I spoke of at the beginning: repentance, prayer, and service. It doesn't matter how you language them, but think about how they might apply in your life. What might they mean for you? Reflect, connect, and act. Breathe, light a candle, go to work. There is so much to be done. So thank you for listening, and may you have a blessed year. Shana Tova.